In the early hours of February 14, 2000, along a rural highway in North Carolina, a small figure was seen walking alone in the darkness. The road was quiet, the weather was cold, and a heavy storm was moving through the area. The child was 9-year-old Asha Degree. She had left her home sometime during the night while her family was asleep. Two truck drivers later reported seeing the young girl walking along Highway 18. She was carrying a backpack and moving steadily through the rain. When one driver turned his vehicle around to check on her, the child suddenly ran off the road and disappeared into the nearby woods. By the time authorities began searching the area, there was no sign of her. Asha Degree had vanished into the darkness of that stormy night. Her disappearance would become one of the most puzzling missing child cases in American history. More than 2 decades later, investigators are still trying to understand why a 9-year-old left her home and where she went next. Asha Degree lived in the small town of Shelby, North Carolina. Shelby was a quiet community located about 40 miles west of Charlotte. In February of 2000, Asha was 9 years old and in the 4th grade. She lived with her parents, Harold and Aquila Degree. Her older brother, O'Brien Degree, shared the same bedroom. The family lived in a modest house along Oakcrest Drive. Friends and relatives described the household as stable and close-knit. Asha was known as a quiet and responsible child. She followed rules and rarely caused trouble. Her parents were considered protective and attentive. They did not allow their children to wander outside alone. Night school followed a structured routine in the Degree household. Homework was completed before dinner. Television time was limited. Bedtime was usually around 9 p.m. On Sunday, February 13, 2000, the family spent the evening at home. Asha had attended church earlier that day. Later that evening, the family watched television together. Around 8:30 p.m., the children prepared for bed. A power outage briefly affected the neighborhood that night. The lights went out for a short period before returning. Despite the interruption, the household settled into its usual nighttime routine. Asha and her brother went to sleep in the bedroom they shared. Their parents remained awake for a while longer. Nothing seemed unusual about the evening. No visitors came to the house that night. Everything appeared calm and ordinary. But sometime after midnight, something changed. At some point during the early morning hours, Asha left the house. No one in the family saw her leave. No door alarm sounded. The house remained quiet. By the time the family woke up later that morning, Asha Degree was gone.
During the early morning hours of February 14, 2000, the Degree home was quiet. Outside, a cold storm was moving through Cleveland County. Rain fell across the rural roads surrounding Shelby. Strong winds moved through the trees along Highway 18. Inside the house, Asha and her brother had been asleep in their shared bedroom. At some point during the night, Asha quietly got out of bed. Investigators later believed this happened sometime after 2 a.m. She did not wake her brother. She did not wake her parents. The house remained silent. Asha dressed herself before leaving. She put on her white long-sleeve shirt and light-colored pants. She also took a small backpack. Inside the bag were a few personal belongings. Among them were clothing items and small personal objects. The backpack suggested she intended to travel somewhere. No one in the home saw her walk out the door. Investigators believe she left through the front door of the house. Once outside, she stepped into the cold February night. The weather conditions were difficult. Rain was falling steadily across the area. Temperatures were low for that time of year. Despite the weather, Asha continued moving away from the house. She walked along the roadside in the darkness. Highway 18 runs near the Degree family home. It is a rural highway with very little traffic during the night. Sometime after 3 a.m., witnesses began noticing a small figure walking along the road. From a distance, the figure appeared to be a young child. The sight was unusual for that hour of the night, especially during a storm. Those sightings would later become the first confirmed clues in the disappearance of Asha Degree.
Shortly after 3:30 a.m., traffic along Highway 18 was extremely light. Most residents in the area were still asleep, but a few drivers were traveling through the rural stretch of road. One of those drivers was a long-distance truck driver passing through the area. As he drove along the highway, he noticed something unusual ahead. A small figure was walking along the side of the road. At first, he assumed it might be an adult, but as his headlights approached, he realized it was a child. The figure appeared to be a young girl walking alone in the rain. She was moving steadily along the shoulder of the highway. The truck driver slowed down as he passed. The sight was concerning. A child should not have been walking alone at that hour, especially during a storm. After driving a short distance further, the driver decided to turn his vehicle around. He wanted to check if the child needed help. By the time he returned, the girl was still walking along the road. As his truck approached again, the child suddenly reacted. She quickly left the roadside. Witnesses later said she ran toward the wooded area beside the highway. Within seconds, she disappeared into the darkness. The driver did not pursue her into the woods, but the encounter stayed with him. Later that morning, when news of a missing child began spreading, the sighting became critical. Investigators would soon focus on that stretch of Highway 18. It was the last confirmed location where Asha Degree was seen alive. From that moment forward, the mystery of what happened next began to deepen. Later that morning, the Degree household began its usual routine. Around 6:30 a.m., Asha's mother went to wake the children for school. Her brother was still asleep in the bedroom, but Asha was not in her bed. At first, her parents assumed she might be somewhere else in the house. They checked the living room, they checked the bathroom, they checked the kitchen, but Asha was nowhere inside the home. Her backpack was also missing. That was when the family began to worry. Her parents searched outside the house. They looked around the yard and nearby areas. There was still no sign of her. Within minutes, they began calling relatives and neighbors. No one had seen Asha that morning. By 6:40 a.m., the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office was contacted. Deputies arrived quickly at the house. The situation was immediately treated as a missing child case. Officers began searching the neighborhood. Neighbors joined the search within hours. Soon, dozens of volunteers were combing the surrounding area. Police dogs were brought in to track her scent. Investigators also began checking nearby roads. That was when 2 truck drivers contacted authorities. Both reported seeing a young girl walking along Highway 18 earlier that morning. The timeline of Asha's disappearance was beginning to take shape, but the question remained unanswered. Why had a 9-year-old left her home alone in the middle of the night? Investigators quickly focused on the section of Highway 18 where the sightings occurred. Search teams moved into the wooded areas beside the road. The terrain was dense with trees and thick undergrowth. Volunteers walked through the forest in organized lines. Police dogs attempted to follow Asha's scent trail. The dogs traced the scent from the Degree home toward the highway. but the trail became difficult to follow near the road. Heavy rain during the night had disturbed the ground. Investigators expanded the search radius. Nearby buildings and structures were checked carefully. One location soon attracted attention. It was a small tool shed located along Highway 18. The shed belonged to a nearby property owner. Inside the structure, investigators found possible signs that someone had been there. Items were discovered scattered on the floor. Among them were a candy wrapper and a pencil. Another item found in the shed was a hair bow. The bow was later identified as belonging to Asha. The discovery confirmed that she had likely been in the area, but it did not explain where she went afterward. Investigators began considering several possibilities. One possibility was that she had become lost in the woods. Another possibility was that someone had encountered her along the road. Witness reports suggested she had been moving with purpose. She had been walking steadily along the highway. This raised new questions for investigators. Why had she left home that night, and where had she intended to go? The investigation into Asha Degree's disappearance was now expanding beyond the immediate search area. As the search continued, investigators began examining possible explanations for Asha's actions. Her family insisted she had no reason to run away. Asha was known as a cautious child. She was afraid of the dark. She was also known to dislike storms. The conditions that night made her walk even more difficult to explain. Investigators looked closely at her school life. Teachers described her as responsible and quiet. There were no signs of conflict at school. Friends said she had seemed normal in the days before her disappearance. Attention then turned to the contents of her backpack. Family members confirmed that several items were missing from the home. Among them were pieces of clothing and small personal belongings. This suggested that Asha may have packed the bag herself. Investigators also examined whether anyone might have influenced her decision. One theory was that she may have planned to meet someone. However, there was no confirmed evidence supporting that possibility. Another theory considered whether she had been sleepwalking, but experts noted that her actions appeared organized and purposeful. She had dressed herself and taken specific belongings. Witness reports also described her walking steadily along the highway. The investigation later uncovered an additional detail. Months after the disappearance, Asha's backpack was discovered buried in plastic bags. The location was about 26 miles north of Shelby. The discovery raised new questions for investigators. How had the backpack traveled that far from the original search area, and who had placed it there? Despite years of investigation, no clear explanation has fully answered those questions.
Over the years, the disappearance of Asha Degree has remained an active investigation. Law enforcement agencies have continued reviewing the case. Tips have been received from across the country. Search efforts have been conducted multiple times in the region. Investigators have also revisited earlier witness statements. Several pieces of evidence remain central to the case. The sightings along Highway 18 are still considered credible. The items discovered in the roadside shed remain important clues, and the backpack found miles away continues to raise unanswered questions. Authorities have also released age-progressed images of Asha. These images attempt to show what she might look like as an adult. The case has been featured in national missing person databases. It has also been highlighted by organizations focused on missing children. Asha's family has continued to speak publicly about the case. They have urged anyone with information to come forward. Despite the passage of more than 2 decades, the mystery remains unresolved. No confirmed suspect has ever been identified.
no definitive explanation has been established. Investigators continue to examine new leads when they emerge. The circumstances surrounding that stormy night remain unclear. Why a 9-year-old left her home alone is still unknown. What happened after she disappeared into the woods has never been confirmed. The road along Highway 18 remains the last verified place she was seen. From that moment forward, the trail simply ends. The disappearance of Asha Degree remains one of the most puzzling missing child cases in American history. The question that investigators continue to ask is the same one that began the case. Where did Asha Degree go?